Alright, we are just joining the first match of Mugwort versus mastertan. Crazy House World Championship match. And the winner of this match will actually be in the candidates. So there's something to play for. And well, as usual, I am running on a slight delay to ensure the players don't have any incentive or advantage of watching my stream. Of course, I'm sure that they won't do that, but just to ensure that they won't, I'm also running on delay, so that's why. That also means that any notes in the chat, I will see them, but I will see them slightly later than you will type them, so bear with me on that one. So yeah, we have this. Both players are from Australia, and both players have been around have been around the game for a very long time. Sorry about that. And mastertan is now very low rated, or you would say 2300 is decent, but he used to be 2600, 2700, around the same level as Mugwort is now. So based on that, you couldn't pick a winner here, and also based on their mutual score, I would say it's quite even. And I feel like Mugwort has been in practice lately more than mastertan, so he might be slight favorite because of that. Alright, but let's focus on the games. We have a relatively calm opening by mastertan, not going for anything forced very quickly, and he's just giving up this knight on f6 for a pawn, which we see, which is quite common in Crazy House. And he's just trying to get out of the opening without any damage, and then he will try to outplay his opponent. I think that's going to be his tactic, and I expect Mugwort to be better equipped in opening play indeed. So right now maybe you can take here. Oh. Take on d5, but I think maybe queen e2 then or something. I don't know what is planned. If you trade twice on d5 and the bishop comes to c6, I think black can be very happy there. Yeah, so we have this on the board, and now we see what Mugwort has planned. I'm just going to take on d5. Queen e7 in between. That's guarding some squares as well as the e-file. And then take back and put a bishop on c6. I think it's very reasonable and looks like a good plan for black. The only thing maybe is that knight f5 comes in between. Maybe that's something that Mugwort is counting. For example, now, let's say pawn somewhere, pawn e3 or something, takes knight f5. But I don't know how much it does if you just go queen f6. So yeah, I think black might be better here, or at least practically speaking he is, because he is a minute up on the clock. And Mugwort is a very strong player, but Mugwort is not the quickest, I'd say. Okay, so blocking on e5, so he can play knight f5 now. Queen f6 no longer possible to guard the g7 pawn. But maybe then there was bishop takes f3, attacking the queen as well, and then queen takes e5. But we're gonna see that. Yeah, indeed, Opper, welcome in the chat, saying d5 turned out to be not the right It's only in favor of black, yeah. It is. Okay, so I feel that as well. Bishop g5. If you trade queens, you have a queen at d8 mating threat, so that's something to be careful about. But I'd imagine that just blocking is because you cannot take, and now if you take with the knight, there's no mate for black. Black king is not mated, so you can just take this one if knight takes e7 happened. So yes, the king now has to move. You have to decide where to go. If you go to d8, this bishop takes f6 is probably the plan, and if you go to d7, you allow bishop g4, guarding some squares. And also you probably have to defend here, and now you can take on f6 because the pin is no longer happening. But mastertan has his extra queen. Bishop e3 is a nice move because otherwise queen takes c2 and knight d3 would have been strong continuation, and now he has to go for this. It seems very strong as well. Bishop a3. You take, and a knight can drop on c4. And look at the clock. I think you can take and go knight c4, and then you can take this knight, and you threaten knight at a3. Yeah, you can just block. You can also just block with the knight, maybe. Go knight a3 to take this with check. You go king a1 or king c1, pawn at b2, take with check. Okay, and now you have to figure out how to mate, and I think this is a very good one because you threaten to take the rook and rook a1. That's a simple mate, and I think mastertan will see that. He goes knight a3. He missed the mate there. But yeah, it's still very hard to defend this as white. The mate is still on, and now he sees it. And remember, I'm on delay, so he doesn't. If he was listening, he only will hear it when the second game is already on the way. So I'm not feeding moves. Yeah, good game by mastertan. Surprisingly taking. Well, it's kind of surprisingly taking the first black game away from Mugwort. So that's good. We'll be in for a good one. And mastertan avoiding the bishop c4 lines. I think this is on purpose. Bishop b5, avoiding theoretical lines in the e4 e5 stuff. But now after a6 he goes back anyway. But I think a6 probably is useful. Is useful for black. Because in some e4 e5 lines you go knight c3, knight a4, and then you trade this bishop off to the f2 diagonal. But now if you go for this plan, you have bishop a7. So I think the inclusion of a6 helps black. And also the knight sometimes comes to b5. In some e4 e5 lines that's also not possible now. So if you go for this a6, you have to trade basically, or play something like this, but just giving the free move a6 seems unnecessary. Okay, but we now have with the inclusion of a6, we have a sort of older line with a trade on f6 and a queen back to d8, and this line has a good reputation for black actually in the e4 e5 segment. I think if you check the opening book on Lichess, this will also be good for black with a good percentage on the higher rated players. because the normal issues of this opening are quick attack on f7 or h6, and both are now sufficiently covered. So if you want to play it slow with black, you can go rook g8, queen f8, bishop e6, whoa, bishop e6, rook e8. That could be a positional plan if there's nothing happening. While white is probably has to figure out how to attack here. I think starting to trade some of these bishops is indeed a good idea. You might want take and h3, because your king is also on h1. These king moves both actually are designed to not have to let these two bishops have power on the king. So you can go h3, h6, and then your g3 or g6 square is not so weak. Because imagine the king being on g8 here, for example, then you could drop a pawn on g6 and then takes, and then the knight can discover. So therefore it's a very prudent move, prophylactic. Okay, so the Mugwort decides to not trade material and say, well, I think I have a better positional strategic position. And I'll just go back. But then again, the white's position is, there's nothing wrong with white's position, but or at least I feel like, but I think he could have played more active. So we just have an even game now, and it's going to be decided on who makes the first mistake or decisive mistake. How to trade in this position to gain something, for example. It's knight e7 and take, and you can play c6 at some stage. But you are allowing a couple of trades now. If you want them. Take, and then I guess take with the bishop, and then knight at f5, and white, or knight at d5. And you gain a tempo on the queen. Knight at f5 I like more, and he plays it as well, because now you can take on g7, maybe. So the queen has to move. I think the queen has to move. Or you trade once, but then... Okay, so he just counters. Quickly taken by mastertan. You might think about an attack now. There might be some bishop at f6 takes, knight takes e5 to have a pawn here, but that might be too aggressive. I like this as well, because now you're basically trading off this bishop. Queen at h7 was the mating threat. You bring a knight here, or this one. And one of the ideas of black was to go bishop h3 and try to harass g2. But now that's no longer a problem, or at least not a big problem. Note that this knight is very important. Without this knight there would have been the smothered queen at g1 takes, knight at f2. Checkmate, but now you have knight at g1. And now the queen is also covering and picking up this knight almost. You could cover with queen c2, but then bishop at d1 would pick up material. So the knight goes back and tries to create holes on g3, e3, with this pawn being here. Again, strong play by mastertan so far. You could even decide to take here and sack the queen. Because it's not... maybe you can take back, but I don't think that's wise. Bishop at g7, king h7, takes h6. So bishop at d8 to strengthen the dark squares. And you want to take this rook, of course, so knight h7 is nice, but now you take the bishop, I think. And now there's no new bishop on d8, so the Mugwort has to find another defensive resource. Now you go bishop e7, threaten the rook. Next you can go knight h4. Ooh, 0.1 left for Mugwort, that was close. Knight h4, I think, is really strong. Ah, you can just take this knight, okay. So maybe Mugwort is... rook h7 missed. That was a unnecessary pre-move. Queen takes g3. And yeah, mastertan proving he's not that rusty in, as I maybe suggested before. And he's quick in the time troubles. There used to be hour-long series of mastertan playing Jan Lee in 1-0 Crazy House. So yeah, I'll check how many games he has. Yeah, it's 25,000 games. That's amazing. An amazing number. So he's really experienced in the game and he knows what he's doing. Alright, so we have the same, or almost the same setup as before, but now the bishop is on d3, and that's useful in some cases, because if you now trade a knight, the knight can come to h5 and you attack g7, and rook g8 is usually the way to defend, but now the bishop is looking at h7. That's one of the advantages of playing like this. And therefore also e5 played to open up this bishop. And I think if you play like this in this system, the idea is that you first create safety and then you push e5 with black. So let's say if he played a move like h3 or something, then black pushed e5 and he should be okay. So e5 principal move, and mastertan took quite some time to figure out what to do. And now if you really play, if you just play g4 and win the piece, because the knight has nowhere to go but back, because f4 is covered by the bishop, as you see. So this would be winning a piece, but at the cost of opening your king. So I think g4, knight f6 is back is the idea, and if take takes, e5 opens up the g4 pawn. I think that's something. Mugwort not going for g4. It would have been a crazy move. But indeed, I think it's also risking a lot. I like knight b4 here. This bishop, it's not so threatening just yet, but it's a strong piece. So you would like to trade it for your knight on c6. and also opening up bishop c6. So again, a nice piece play by mastertan here. And Mugwort needs to figure out a way to get in. This knight is probably going to d5, and if this knight lands on d5, this knight is also in going to f4, and then you have a couple of nice pieces all of a sudden. Well, if you look at this position at first glance, these knights are basically doing nothing. But the positions are very tight. You can see that there's 10 moves played, and both have used over 2 minutes, including increments. So yeah, I think he's going to play knight takes f7 now. Yeah, because if you take here, knight takes e5 is crushing. So I'm guessing you would try to take here, make that work, but then maybe just knight takes one of these. Because taking here, it doesn't seem like it's the way to go. And this might be Mugwort getting on the board. He takes it. Wow. I think just taking here, and there might be some bishop takes g2, which is dangerous, but knight at g6, such a strong threat. Okay, so he plays knight at h4, attacking g2 and defending g6. But this gives white time to think about an attack. Pawn h6. Ah, there's a nice resource in the position here. Pawn here. You take, trade queens. And then knight at h3 is a mating threat. As well as queen at h1, take, bishop takes g2, king g1 back, and knight h3. Ooh, we might see this. Pawn g7, okay. Mugwort sees it as well, I think, and he's just ignoring the threat. Playing bishop g5. And now maybe just take the rook. So there is this trick for black, but I think Mugwort is just continuing the attack, saying, okay, if you take here, I'll probably have rook f7, forcing your king here, and I'll take this with check, or I'll just take it now. Opening up the queen first, while threatening rook f7 and taking on f6. And now it feels like game over. I think you could just take the queen and don't think too long about it. You can also take the bishop first to be absolutely certain that there's nothing happening on g2. And I think this is going to be resigned soon. Picking up material, leaving no doubt about it. Forcing the king here, and there's no problem here. You can just take this, but I think even queen takes b4 is probably mate. Mugwort doesn't need to play quickly and not get below a couple of seconds, but even then his king is perfectly safe. Okay, so he's just taking some pieces around this king. Taking this bishop probably. Not the cleanest conversion, but yeah, he should be able to take this. Knight a4, you can take this knight if you want. This is also perfectly fine. Okay, so now there's no mate for black, and now definitely it should be enough. Free queen. Alright, Mugwort takes it 2-1. And he's on the board now. Nerves gone, hopefully. After mastertan surprisingly took that first black game. Okay, so no trade on f6 and h6 g5. And the idea is that you push d5 or at least the d pawn, and you put your bishop somehow, some way on this diagonal, because this is basically a bit of the problem in the position for black, but you try to resolve that. And white might think about e3, bishop d3, knight here or there, and then push h4. But I don't like Mugwort taking half a minute for d5. Because d5 is such a principal move, you will play that. Okay, now he's speeding up his development. I guess bishop d3. First knight e5 to not allow bishop g4 seems like an idea as well. I think the bishop f5 now. Is the way to develop. You go knight takes c6, takes knight at e5 to attack again, and then you defend with queen e8. That's useful. That's usually useful for the black pieces. Dropping a knight on e4 here, and normally you could kick this with f3, but you have to calculate knight takes d3. There are some problems there maybe. But I think f3 might be on the board. And maybe not now, but then next maybe. Takes, I guess h takes, and if you go bishop g4, I'm thinking we're going to see some queen sacrifice. So that's probably not good for black. Lone Wolf is suggesting bishop h8 to just, and that's a sensible idea, to preserve this piece as a defender. But then you really have to watch out about h7. So then f3 comes to mind again. So yeah, usually I have this kinds of setups with white as well, but then the pawn is not on g6, or not on g5, but on g6, and that's a lot safer. Okay, so Mugwort is also sensing that he has to do something about this bishop, and plays knight at b4, and wants to trade, take, and then you can take here. Okay, so we have trade on e4 by mastertan, and trade on g7. And now you can play bishop at e5, I was thinking as well. So you can just take this one. But okay, he played bishop e5, and now he has to figure something out. Next move. So when you played bishop takes e4, you did weaken d3 and c2 a bit. So there might be some ideas later of black taking here and then putting a knight on d3. And that should work out maybe for black. I also like the idea of going bishop at c5 at some stage to threaten this knight. And take e7, and then you have this f6 square you can use. So yeah, I think you can just take this, sack the queen. This takes, bishop takes d1, knight takes h6, king h7, bishop f5. Looks really strong. And note the fact that if you take here, knight takes h6, there's only a knight and queen in hand, and those are not the most useful blockers in this situation. So now you can play bishop here, or just take this, okay. But now queen h5 maybe. I like this as well, by the way. But I thought it was better after bishop f5, making him use a piece first, or take this one, and then you had h4 opening up. Yeah, this is maybe a bit too much. You know, now there's a pawn in hand. So this move was better before. But it's a really... I've said this before, but it's really hard to notice when such checks are good for you. Keep an eye out on the blockers of your opponent. Okay, so rook at c1 might be a threat. I don't know for sure. With some knight at b3 to follow. But I think you can just run up the board to b3 and take it both knights, and there isn't enough. But now there's an extra knight in hand for black, so now rook at c1 might be an issue. Takes, repeat. Yeah, I think rook at c1. Okay, d2, same idea, to go knight b3. Now he found this one, that's even better maybe. Because if you take, there's queen c2, and the rook is eyeing f2 as well, so that should be mate. Queen b2 takes b2 now. Okay, game over. Yeah, I think it's... mastertan played bishop f5 one move too late, and then he gave too much chances. And Mugwort executed there. Okay, so 2-2. And we have quick trades on d5 and queen e2. And queen e2, you have to figure out how to block. And if you do this incorrectly, you probably lose both your pawns here, and then white has just a nice advantage. Pawn c4 played very quickly by Mugwort, so he knows this. He has played this before, I feel. And mastertan in the dark. Yeah, you would like to interpose maybe with queen e7, but then yeah, d5 is under attack, so you can't really do that. And white is just taking this one and taking this one. And if you take here, there's probably queen takes, but maybe that's the way to go. Take queen takes c4, bishop e6, pawn f5, bishop at c6, maybe the active stuff. Probably just queen e2 back is still fine for white. But he goes for it. Maybe he wants to block somewhere else. But I think queen takes c4 now. Okay, knight takes. Okay, most obvious move here is knight f6 checkmate, so you have to do something about the e-file. pawn e6 played. Now you can still go for pawn f5 maybe. I thought queen takes was maybe more direct, but there are some hidden threats here. And the c4 pawn is... Well, you can take it now, but bishop here, and then you would emerge a pawn up as white, but black will be satisfied then, because he has broken free out of the opening bind and he has some play. A bishop at d5 he can develop with knight c6, so yeah, something more active tried by Mugwort. Pawn at h6. Obvious move, if you take knight at f6 forces your king to e7. He does go for it. You cannot take with the queen, and that's going to be too much, so you have to go king e7. But there are no pieces in hand for white, so mastertan is just saying, okay, I'll play pawn at g7 next, and just be fine. Even pawn at d5 now might be on his mind. Pawn d5 for king, but there is a queen check. But then bishop at d6. Also pawn at d5, maybe knight takes d5. And then pawn at f6, pawn at g6 is something. Okay, so just solid putting pieces around the king. And now Mugwort has to figure out a way to develop, I think, because it feels like he has too little pieces in the attack. I think maybe d4. Yeah, there we go. Because now you can play pawn at g5 and bishop g5. For example, if bishop g7 is played. By the way, if you play bishop g7, probably knight h5 is strong as well. So therefore, yeah, pawn d6 is of course a way to defend, but I like the pawn on g7 or d5 harassing these knights. d5 is still possible, of course. Mastertan in time trouble. Let's see what he finds. Okay, he goes bishop at g7, so the bishops covering each other. Still, I think knight h5. Pawn here I also like, if you trade, then queen can come to c5, and there's a huge attack on d6. There might be queen takes c6, knight at g8 now. Not sure. It's forcing, but it's also giving mastertan a couple of easy moves and giving him some more time to think. So maybe bishop takes h6 first. Take knight at takes knight at g8. Okay, not going for it. Probably. Ooh, he just moved with 2-second increments, so he just moved almost. He ran almost out of time. Yeah, and he's going to flag. Well played by Mugwort. Taking 3-2 after 2-0 down. He's now up 3-2. Finding his rhythm. And here we see Mugwort is just better equipped in the openings. Mastertan fighting on his own there. After only a couple of moves. And he was in trouble quickly. Okay, so bishop a4 now. Realizing bishop c4 is nothing if you go bishop b5. Looks like a chess game is posted in the chat. Yeah, indeed. Oh, in chess you wouldn't allow this, by the way, but maybe even then you just go rook g8. Okay, so the queen got sacrificed, but mastertan not going for this one. Because usually when you play this and you have your bishop on c4 and the king is on g8, then you have some stuff on f7, but now he's just taking back the piece, otherwise knight f4 by black if you go here, the knight come to f4 and knight at e2, just strong for black. Okay, so now blocking with the knight, making this bishop feel like a bit useless. Now I feel you might think about knight takes e5 and pawn at f6, because again there are no diagonals in black's hand. Knight takes e5 takes pawn f6, rook g8 maybe, but yeah, then you take here. So I think that might be interesting to go for something like that, because the knight on e7 is just it's a bit in the way. Okay, but he trades. I don't like trading. Yeah, I feel like Mugwort is again better. Yeah, I would have gone for knight takes e5 here. But okay. Here you can maybe take this bishop. But yeah, black is just threatening bishop at e2 to go bishop g4 or h3. And he has everything he wanted here. And yeah, already I think black is better maybe. Okay, so knight takes c5, and you would like to go bishop g5 after, but knight h3 loses stuff then. Because you bishop g5 you attack this and you can trade here. But if you go bishop g5 you just play knight h3 and you pick up the bishop. Oh, strong move, bishop h3. This is really strong. If you take the queen you have knight e2. You have to take, and king h1, bishop g2 and knight f4 back and you mate. So knight e3 defending g2 necessary. But still you might want to go knight e2 to disrupt some stuff. And for example, knight e2, king h1, knight takes g2 might be something. Bishop takes e7, just knight takes e3 or knight f4 back. I'm thinking Mugwort might go for it, or he finds something that against it. But I'm betting he's calculating knight at e2. And we have it on the board. Yeah, I'm liking knight takes g2 a lot. With bishop here, you can just take this. There's no pieces in hand actually. Okay, you take this knight, then I think just knight f4 back, or just knight takes h4. He takes e3. Maybe you can take the queen now, but still very risky. Ah, you cannot take the queen. I'm silly, because you have bishop g2, and then knight can come to h3. So king g1, only move. Oh, he takes here. I thought it wasn't possible, but maybe he is indeed safe enough here. Oh yeah, it feels sort of safe. Bishop h3. But it isn't safe. Yeah. King g3, knight f5 doesn't help. If king back, you just take the knight. Yeah, knight f5 should win the game. Forcing the bishop to be taken. Take here. Queen takes h4 is mating one. So queen takes g2, yeah, just a blunder, and Mugwort finds the win. Very convincingly, going up to 4-2. A mastertan again, avoiding theory. And helping Mugwort a bit in the attack. I think he could have defended better there. Okay, so we just have... yeah, I don't know. I understand the decision to go out of book, because mastertan is a bit out of practice, but maybe he should have thought of a system to play, and not just e6, d6 and bishop d7 without any e5. Maybe he should have thought of a move forward where he can play e5 quickly. Because now if we go knight c6, Mugwort is going to play e5 again. Maybe he plays e5 now already. And just have a comfortable game. Okay, so Mugwort thinking now. Does he want to go e5? Okay, but so now if you play, let's random move rook b1, then e5, and then black should be okay. So e5 played. Now maybe move your knight or take on d4. But I think if white plays e5, yeah, it's also going on in the chat of the game that e5 is just good for white. If white gets e5 before black, you should be better. That's basically what's happening. Knight g4 does seem principle. Not allow any trades in the center. Now you might think about f6. Takes. I think that's helpful. But then again, I also like just the bishop putting more defense and attacking as well. Ooh, you allowed knight g5. And now it already almost feels like not close to losing, but just much better for white. Because there is bishop f5, but you just put the queen back and you can go after these squares. Okay, this is ballsy. Knight of 6, strong find. If you take, there's a discover check. For example, knight e4. I think he's going knight e4. Knight takes e6 also looks good, but knight e4. Knight takes e6, then you open up the bishop to the queen. So that might be a problem later on. Knight e4, just threaten to take f6 and win the game. Because the only way to go out of this check is to play king h8, but then pawn at g7 forces your king back to the 4-king square, and you just win the queen. And you're also probably winning the queen with check, so this is just winning. Okay, you can take here, and here's, you sack the queen, you go knight takes, pawn at g7, pawn at f6, queen at g7, queen g5 mate. This just mate by force. Mugwort is calculating it, I'm sure, and he will play queen takes g7. There we go. Doesn't matter how you take. If you take with the rook, pawn here is just covering the next game already, but the king cannot run because e7 and e8 are unavailable for the king. So the queen would mate. Alright, so Mugwort 5 in a row. And now on match point, mastertan in a must-win situation. Okay, so again this system. Mugwort castles, and we had 95 I think last game. Mugwort just sticking to this king h8, and I like it. Just using the extra time he got basically by the bishop being on a4 to go here. And maybe if you want to be principled, you just should take here and take the pawn. Probably it's not good, but he could go for this same again, but probably he won't go for the knight takes e5 move I suggested before, and pawn at f6. I'm curious to see if that's indeed was a good idea or not. Okay, I like this try as well. You're trying to go takes and pawn h6. Try to prove that king h8 is helping you by taking here with check, and then a pin maybe. And you have to choose here how to defend. And maybe you go queen e8. It's it looks strange, but the idea behind it is that you can move this knight. If he takes it, you just open up the g file. And you would like to go rook g8 anyway. Because there are some problems with other moves. For example, bishop d7, knight b7 trades off this bishop. Because you attack the queen. Bishop at d7, possible move of course as well. But you're not going for bishop h5 or g4 soon. So it feels like now this piece is doing nothing and giving white some time to improve his position. Well, c6 still has to be dealt with. And if you go bishop b4 or bishop b6, there's knight c4. And with the bishop on the bishop just is strong on this diagonal, so white wouldn't mind trading this knight for this bishop. So while bishop d6 is bishop at d7 is a safe move, there might have been something more active, preserving the bishop in hand. But alright, let's move on. Rook g8 played. So I think you would like to remove this knight, or maybe just go king h1 yourself. And he goes for knight h4. Long-term idea would be king h1, f4 maybe. Yeah, but again, I'm still, this bishop is a really strong piece, and you cannot really trade it, except that maybe bishop e3. Maybe that's a move, positionally speaking, but then black can trade and play bishop h6 or bishop g5. And he should be fine. Okay, so rook b8 played, so no longer pawn at the b7 in the future. Forking these pieces. And Mugwort is trying to go for some trades next. Take here, take here. If you take with the queen, you allow this. And I don't think you want to allow knight at e2. So take with the pawn. Rook trades. And what has he planned here? Maybe he wants knight at h3. He's preparing it with rook here. So now you're threatening knight at h3 because you cannot take. And then g5 is under attack, so rook at g3 seems like the response. Blocking off the defense here. So you might think about taking once. Knight takes here, alright. Fire on the board. Mugwort is also down on the clock. So the both queens are on. So if you take this, this is also open to be taken. Takes. Maybe just take back with the knight actually. Take possible, but I think you should take the bishop. Mugwort does not agree. You could try rook takes g7 and ideas on g7, but you could also just take the rook back. Take twice is a possibility. And knight at g5. Or maybe, wait, you can take and there's knight at g6. Hey, thanks for the follow, Lindsay Lowen. He should have taken, but he's probably missing knight at g6. But still, white is probably better, because the black attack is just not forcing enough. f3 is covered, h3 is covered as well. Trying to chip away. Pawn here, rook f8, something like that, or rook d8. You have to watch out a bit for pawn h3. So let's see if Tan takes this. Bishop f3, just defending, sacrificing the rook, no longer diagonal threats. And now you can just go rook f8, I think. Take and repeat, or just repeat now. That's even better, more forcing. And this is going to be mastertan's game. Mugwort keeps on trying, but now he's defenseless against queen at f8 mate next move. Let me quickly show you what I meant. The chances missed. It was over here. It's a really nice idea, so I want to show you. Take here with the rook. If takes, there's knight at g6 forced. If you take with this one, knight at f7 mates, and if you take with this, you have the rook f7, rook h7 takes, knight g5, king moves, queen h7 mate. Right, but let's move to the game. Okay, so we have the same setup. So yeah, this moves we have seen before. So therefore, I thought let's quickly check the mate I mentioned. Okay, and now we have d5. So now e5 and queen e7, and now maybe remove the bishop or just let him take and go knight takes, or just go knight takes d5 actually, or bishop takes first and then knight takes. But maybe there's queen takes, and some queen at c8 ideas. But maybe you have to take here first for queen at c8 to work. Interesting position already. Pawn at g5, disrupting the pieces. So yeah, the obvious move is bishop takes f3. Takes, I guess. Queen takes, okay. Queen at c8 is something to be worried about, I feel. But maybe it's not so bad. Knight takes, you just bishop takes c2. So bishop takes e2 is probably the best. But still probably bishop takes g2. And there's no pawn, so queen at c8, queen d8 is sufficient now, and the bishop is covering b7, so queen at c8 is not that much. But there is maybe rook g1. And knight f3 takes or something. But this is indeed as posted that this might be a chance for mastertan to get back in the match and try to go for 5-4. I like this. This is a nice move. It has some threats of knight takes g7, but mastertan just taking quickly. The idea is if you take h1, you take g7. And you win on the spot, because you cannot take queen e7, and if you move the king, queen e8 is always mate. But just taking the pawn gets rid of most of the threats. And now if you play knight f3, there's another knight for white in hand, so he might have knight at g7. Nice spots you can take here, and you can play queen e4 pick up the piece. Knight b5. Okay. Knight b5. Maybe you can play knight f3. I don't know. And then some queen check or something. But knight b5, nice move. You could also just defend c7. Queen c8 is also still on the board. So the threat here is queen c8, knight takes c7, checkmate. So knight a6 defending c7 seems good. Now there's a threat mate of double check. He's still missing the check with takes and queen e4. But now he's getting in, he's taking the rook. But there are two queens. But maybe there's just nothing to do with those two queens. Queen a5 seems like a good start to defend c7. And then maybe try to gain an attack. Bishop d2 seems like maybe you want to defend active, but bishop d2 you can take, and knight e4 should be checkmate. Because there are a lot of pawns in hand, so you cannot run to the back rank. I think you're wasted. So you might have time to take here, but it's really tricky. So you could also just play knight f3, takes, threaten mate. He goes for it, not going for queen takes f5. Knight b8. Knight b8. You have to be safe here. King c8, knight takes d6. Ooh, that's missed, I guess. So he runs up. But now knight at d4 or knight d4. Mugwort mating, I feel. Yeah, now definitely. He has to find it, but... there was bishop d7, rook f4. But still. Okay, just being safe. Now queen e4 is the threat. And mastertan will resign, I think, or run out of time. Ooh. Still not over. Alright, there we go. Mugwort finds it in the end. mastertan losing in the end there, 6-3. And Mugwort just with a really strong outing here in 5 points in a row. So yeah, and there's just a really interesting game. I'll pull up the analysis board. Let's just go without the computer. So here takes, and here if you go king c8, knight takes d6. If you take the knight, your rook at c8 is made. If you go here, rook at e8 is made, so you have to take. And here. And yeah, okay, here you can defend, I guess, with something like this. King b7. And there's no pieces to check you further. And that might be, well, that's really crazy, but you won't, I think he was scared of knight takes d6 and rook takes g8, but you just run to b7, but you cannot see that with such low time. Okay, so this was played, and here there was a very nice move. Bishop d7, cutting off the king's retreat. And you block and you play rook f4. Okay, let's check with the computer. King c8. Yeah, it says black is fine. Like this, yeah, we have this. Alright, so yeah, it was fine all along. Okay, nice performance by Mugwort. Well done, congratulations to him. He is now in the candidate stage of the Crazy House World Championship. As we can see on the brackets here. Let's see, where are we? Here we are. So Mugwort continues. He is playing King Switcher next round, but everyone in round 5 of the upper bracket is a candidate, but they will play for a $25 bounty a match between each other, and then move on to the candidate stage and get an extra incentive to play this game. And also it will be nice to see a preview of the candidates matches, of course. And mastertan still not out of it yet. He still has a chance to pull through, but we have to scroll down a bit. He was loser of 220. Here we go. So he plays Shell 6 Red next, who kicks out John Stuckey and Duchess, and that's a strong performance. So mastertan, of course, strong player, but let's not rule out Shell 6 Red. And then he has to beat the winner of Jeremy Durham and Onjo Nakamura. So mastertan still has a good chance of making it to the candidate stage, but he's not in it just yet, as is Mugwort. Or Mugwort is. So if you win this round of losers round 7, you are in the candidates. So here we have Legion Destroyer versus Art of Deception, who surprisingly, I'd say, beat Little Plotkin. Very strong performance. There's analysis, or at least a stream from OKE on that one. And we have, out of this 4 players, there's also coming one candidate, and out of these 5 players also one. So I'm also still in. Alright, let's check the calendar, because if you check this one, there are some new Z8 Team League season is coming up, so there's a lot of Crazy House, competitive Crazy House being played. And tomorrow I'll have a mini match with variants only. So not today. Okay, it's going to be tomorrow 4 p.m. So in 26 hours from now. Okay, let's leave it here. No Crazy House World Championship matches scheduled yet, but we'll probably see some more next week. And also I'm planning to make a video after I'm playing variants only with some analysis of that games. I'll post that on YouTube later. For now, thanks for watching, and hopefully you have a good day wherever you are. Yeah, it's Jan Lee in 45 minutes, so Jan Lee is playing GSVC for this league I was referring to. Indeed, okay, you're right. Alright, have a good one.